Hi everyone, it's Miss Byrd. Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about properties of exponents. There's actually five rules and we're going to learn two of them today, okay? But before we get into those rules, I just want to go over some basics about exponents just to kind of review. So go ahead and take out your spiral notes. We're going to write down the notes today. So take out your spiral notes at this time. And let's get started. Let's kind of do a little warm up. The first example I want to go over with you says, write each expression using an exponent. Okay, so we're going to call this number one. And the first one says 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay. So we need to go ahead and write this using an exponent, okay? So I'm going to do my answers in red. Okay, so there's 4 of them, so the base is 2, and our exponent is going to be to the 4th power. Yeah, not too bad, right? Let's go to number 2. Okay, so we're going to write this expression using exponents. So we have x times x times x, okay? So here, how would you write this as an exponent? Excuse me, using exponents. This would be x to the 3rd power. Okay, let me erase that. Let's go ahead and look at number 3. Number 3 says 1 over 4 times 4. Okay. So to use exponents here, we would say 1 over, and then 4 times 4 is 4 to the 2nd power. Okay. Number 4. Actually, there's no number 4, so we don't need a number 4 here. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and move on to the next set of examples. Okay, so here, the next one says to write each expression write each expression without using exponents. So, for example, number 4, this says 4 to the 3rd power. So we're going to write this without exponents. So here, if you were to expand it, it would actually be 4 times 4 times 4, okay? I hope you're feeling like, oh, this is easy stuff, because this is the warm-up. Okay, number 5, y to the 2nd power. Okay, go ahead and write it out real quick. So you should have y times y. Okay, number 6. M to the 3rd power. Which becomes m times m times m. Very good. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Squiggly line. Okay, so here's some more basics. If you have 3 to the 2nd power, you need to know each part and what it's called. For example, the 3 here is called the base, and the 2 is called the exponent. So we're going to write this. The exponent 2 tells how many times the base 3 is used as a factor. Okay, so let's go over some more basics here. The first thing I want to go over with you is whenever you have a number, let's say 10, well, what's the exponent of this whole number? So it could also be written as 10 to the first power, okay? The same thing for if you have a variable. If you have a variable y, if you want to write it with an exponent, you would say y to the first power, okay? Okay, so the next thing I want to go over with you is some basics. Let's say we have the expression 8x to the third power. Now, there's a big rule here. Whenever you have these parentheses, the 3 belongs to everything inside the parentheses. So for example, here, this would be the base, which is 8 and x. So it would be 8x times 8x times 8x, okay? It could also be written with parentheses, right? It could be written like this. Okay. So you could also write it out as 8 times 8 times 8 times x times x times x, okay? And when you write it with an exponent, it could also be written as 8 to the third power, x to the third power. And if you were to evaluate, if the questions ask you to evaluate, then you would actually do the multiplying. For example, 8 times 8 is 64. When you multiply it by 8 again, you get 512. And then you would write x to the third power. And this would be your answer if it asked you to evaluate it, okay? This example, I kind of introduced you to the exponent with parentheses. So let's say I had -2 inside parentheses to the third power, then this would mean -2 times -2 times -2, right? Okay. -2 times -2, these two equal +4. And then +4 times -2 is -8. So your answer here would be a -8. But let's say you didn't have parentheses and it was -2 to the third power. Then that 3 doesn't belong to -2. The 3 belongs to just the 2. So you would bring the negative over one time, and then you would do 2 to the third power. So then it would be 2 times 2 times 2. Okay? Well, -2 times 2, both of these together equals -4. And then -4 times 2 is -8. So you see how they came out to the same answer? But if you had a positive exponent, they would not be the same answer. So you have to be very careful because the parentheses do make a huge difference. Here we didn't really see it because the exponent was an odd number. Okay, I would like to go over the rules with you. So I ran out of space. I'm going to go to page 2. Okay, so here, this is going to be called the rules of exponents. Now there's several of them, but we're only going to go over 2 of them today. The rules of exponents. Here we go. Okay, so the first rule I want to go over with you is when the exponent is 0. And then we're going to talk about what happens. For example, if I have 4 to the 0 power, okay? So when the exponent is 0, the answer is 1. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. The answer is 1. Okay, so 4 to the 0 power, anytime you have a number to the 0 power, what I like to think of is this. This number, the number 4, wants to be the best. It wants to be the best number. So what is the best number? What when you're the best, what are you? So he's thinking he wants to be that. And the best is he wants to be number 1. And that's exactly what happens when you have an exponent to the 0 power. Your answer is 1. So 4 to the 0 power equals 1. And that's the answer, 1. Let's say I had 100 to the 0 power. Well, then your answer is 1. Let's say I had a variable, y to the 0 power. Y to the 0 power is also 1. Okay, so that's the rule. Anytime you have a number to a 0 power, the answer is 1. Okay, so that's the first rule. The second rule I want to go over with you is when the exponent is negative. So we've actually seen this in the PODs. When the exponent is negative, what happens here is you're going to send it to the bottom. The answer is a fraction. Okay, so you could actually, if it's in the denominator already, you actually just send it to the top and it becomes a whole number. But let me show you what I mean. For example, if I have x to the negative 3rd power, okay? Well, x to the negative 3rd power, since the exponent is a negative, what we're going to do is we're going to send it to the bottom and it becomes a fraction. So here, this actually becomes 1 over, now x to the negative 3rd power goes to the bottom, and then the exponent becomes a positive. And this is our answer. It's a fraction. 1 over x to the 3rd power. Okay, let's go over another one. Let's say, for example, you have 1 over x to the negative 4th power. Okay, so here, instead of sending it to the bottom, it's already there in the denominator. You're actually going to send it to the numerator. So all of this is going to go up here. So we're going to send this up. So it becomes 1 times x to the 4th power. Now the exponent becomes a positive, and then we're going to multiply. So 1 times x to the 4th power is just x to the 4th power, and this is our final answer. Okay. Then here's another example. Then we could have something like this: 3 over y to the negative 2nd power. Okay. So here we want to send all of this up to the numerator. So the 3 stays, and then we're going to multiply it with y to the positive 2nd power, right? Because we get rid of the negative. So this ends up just being 3y to the 2nd power. Okay. So those are the 2 rules. I do want to go over with you about the, let's see, the first rule, whenever your exponent is 0. This will always be a 1. The only time it's not a 1 is if you have this. If you have 0 to the 0 power, this is actually going to be undefined. Your answer would be undefined. Now, the reason why it's undefined is because it's similar to dividing by a 0. You can never divide by a 0, and that's actually what's happening here. Whenever we get into the rules about exponents and division, you'll see an example of that and why it's why you can't divide by 0. Okay. Okay, so let's go over some examples of how you'll see it on the assignment. Okay. All right, so here's some examples. Okay, so number 1. 12 to the negative 60th power. Wow, okay. So what we want to do is we want to change this to have positive exponents, okay? So because we have a negative exponent, we're going to send it to the bottom and it becomes a fraction, okay? So here we end up saying, okay, all of this has to go to the denominator. So it's going to be 12 to the 60th power, and it becomes a positive. And up here in the numerator, we're going to put 1. And that's it. This is our answer. Okay. We want to keep it as positive exponents, okay? Okay, so here's number 2. "12 to the 0 power." What do you think the answer is? The answer is 1. That's it. Number 3. 4x to the 0 power over y to the negative 3rd power. Okay, so here we're actually combining the 2 rules, okay? The first rule you can see is x to the 0 power. I think that's the easiest one to evaluate. Well, if I evaluate this, then I'm going to move the 4 over. I'm going to keep the 4. But x to the 0 power becomes 1, so it's times 1, right? Over, and then we have y to the negative 3rd power. Now, I already know I'm going to have to move this to the top, right? So then I have 4 times 1, which is 4. So I'm going to leave it as 4. And then we're going to say times y to the positive 3rd power. Remember, when it goes up here, the exponent becomes a positive. So then when you multiply these two, you have 4y to the 3rd power. And this is your final answer, okay? All right. Number 4. We have negative 5 to the 0 power over 2 to the negative 2. All right, let's see here. So this exponent, the 0, belongs only to the 5, not the negative 5. So I'm going to bring the negative over. And then 5 to the 0 power is 1 over 2 to the negative 2 power. Okay, so then the negative exponent, I'm going to bring it to the top. So I'm going to say negative 1 times, now this becomes 2 to the 2nd power, okay? So then here, if they wanted you to evaluate, then you could. For example, 2 to the 2nd power is 4, so negative 1 times 4 equals, and then negative 1 times 4 is negative 4, and that's our final answer, okay? Okay, that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what your assignment is. Good luck, and I'll see you.